You know the song?
I believe so.
Yeah. What's the pitch? We're gonna do this is 2 Corinthians chapter 10.
After the flesh, and I'm gonna be hoarse. Sounds like water. Where'd you put it?
Yeah, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3, 4, and 5. 3 verses. This is amazing. You get one or two. 3 verses. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
Though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. You want to hear it again? Repetition is the key to learning. Is this one even working?
Yes, but you got to be close to it.
Let me swallow it.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imagination and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
Let's get another one here. Songs. Well, how about this? Believe in the Lord your God.
Believe in the Lord your God.
Oh, 2 Corinthians chapter 20. 20. Perfect vision, right? 2 Chronicles 20. Chronicles. Yeah, you know the story. Jehoshaphat, he hears that his cousins, the Ammonites, the Moabites, and the Edomites, they're all ganging up and they're coming. They're going to wipe them out. Okay. Yeah, sends the choir out in front, and this is probably what they sang.
Believe in the Lord your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. Believe in the Lord your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper.
20. 2 Chronicles 20. Yeah, it starts down on near the end of the verse. It's a long verse. Yeah, and they rose up early in the morning, went forth from the wilderness of Tekoa, and they went forth. Jehoshaphat stood and said, hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem. Now the song begins.
Believe in the Lord your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. Believe in the Lord your God, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper.
I think we should.
Huh? You think we should what?
Noon is coming soon.
Oh, you ready to do something? Oh, right.
That is a really good verse for me to share. I want to talk a little bit about my friends Dan and Alex, who were maybe the first people to arrive for the feast, and maybe will be the last to leave. So it's just really amazing, and because they are both Christian rappers, which is interesting with this verse here, which is about music. I don't know, you know the story. So in the story, the enemies of Israel are coming, and Jehoshaphat is the king, right? He's the king, and he sings that song. He tells all Israel, he sings that song, believe in the Lord your God, so shall you be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. And then it says in verse 21, he consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto the Lord, that they should praise the beauty of holiness, and they went out in front of the army. So the singers went out in front of the army, and they were told to say, praise the Lord, his mercy endures forever. That's cool, I didn't know that. That's what they said. And they began to sing and to praise, and the Lord worked to set ambushes against the children of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, and the armies that came against Judah were smitten, were destroyed. So yes, the enemy armies fought each other. Right. Oh, is that okay? Yes, you heard that, right? So, yeah, the enemy armies were split in three. So they assumed that when they were singing, that one of the other armies lost, and so they became discouraged, and they started to freak out, and they fought each other. So that is the power of song, and it also shows that God can give us victory not through war, but through the weapons of that was the first song. The weapons of our warfare are not the type that we think, physical, carnal, fleshly. But that just shows also the power of song. So I'll start with prayer. Father in heaven, I just thank you that we can come to you at this Feast of Tabernacles. You've really blessed. You've brought so many different people here, and I just pray that everyone would know that no matter where they are in their walk, that you are with them, that you love them, that you understand all of us where we are, and that we can be comforted. We don't need to feel pressure regarding what we understand or what we don't understand. I know these are a lot of new things, especially for some of our friends here, and that it's okay. Wherever they are, it's okay. And I just ask that you be with us as we share our stories, that they might feel comfortable to share, and that the things that they share would bless all of us. And that we might learn from each other's walks, that we might know how you work more, and that we might know how we can share better in the future. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So the way I met Dan was I still remember this because I was on a trip with my mom to see my grandmom, and my mom and my grandma were both very Buddhist. And sometimes I can start to overthink things because I'm like, I always want to share. It's like rare that my mom's always so busy. I don't see her that much. And my grandma, I definitely don't see much. And I always feel like this pressure that I need to share. My grandma's going to die soon. And it's always hard. It's not easy. My grandma has this huge thing of her shrine of different idols, and does her morning and evening oblations to her idols, and we'll pray together. She'll say, amen, or the Buddhist way is satu, and so I say, satu, sure, satu, and so I'll pray. And so she's into that, and she'll say, and she'll ask me questions about God, but it's hard. So one of these times I was a little bit discouraged, and Dan somehow Instagrammed me. I don't know how. My Instagram, I think, is private too. But he said, I'm not even sure if what he said, but he said something like, I think he said, listen to my songs, my Christian songs, my rap songs. I remember, I think the first one you had was, it was like a Mark of the Beast song. Yeah. And that was really, I thought it was really cool. And I looked at his Instagram and said, non-Trinitarian SDA. I said, whoa, this guy. I don't dare to write that on my Instagram. so I thought that was, yeah, he had those lyrics in the song, and he would do lots of Instagram stories where he was given sort of Bible studies, and so I thought, wow. So I said, hey, I don't know if most people don't know this because I don't really, I also do Christian rap, but it's more for my non-Christian friends in Thailand. Like I did a song about being encouragement for, there's a few songs that were really successful with my friends. There's one called Encouragement for Lonely, Sober Vegetarians. Because I have a joke in the song that when I stopped drinking, 50% of my friends vanished, drinking alcohol. And then when I became vegetarian, the remaining 50% also vanished. But God is good, he gives you new friends. So when I never was able to share that with my friends, but when my friends listened to that song, they were laughing. They were like, oh, Daddy, yeah, they kind of felt sorry. They pitied me. In a way, it helps them to relate. I had another song called Talk Too Much, where the song is about me trying to share conspiracy theories, and then they're like, Danny, you talk too much. It's a kind of a joke song. I wanted to write that song so they would know that I knew how I was coming across, in hindsight. When I actually did it, I was a bit overzealous. But now I'm like, oh, Danny, you talk too much. So my friends say, that's exactly how you were. Good song, good song. So yeah, the songs, as Dan will share, they're a way, they won't listen to me talk about God, and they won't really listen to me share, they won't read sermons, but they'll listen to the songs. And we try to do them in a way that's tactful. At least I do. But I said, Dan, I also do songs. I sent Dan some songs, and Dan was like, cool, man. You got to do more. And so he really encouraged me. Yeah. And and that's how we got in touch. And Dan came about a month ago. That was like 2 years ago. I was in Thailand. It was a long time that we would just share back and forth. We've been trying to do songs together. And then he was like, Danny, when you're going to Georgia, I'm in Florida, just contact me. He tried to come to Talking Rock once, but I think everybody was in Jasper or in Benton, and so he couldn't find it, and he's like, what? But finally I said, yeah, Dan, I'm coming. He's like, why are you coming? So Dan came last month and got baptized, and that was just really cool. I really give Dan credit for being a little bit courageous just to come to the feast, because feasting is, it's just, among father son is kind of taboo. And yeah, so Dan, he'll watch sermons all day long, just Talking Rock, Joshua Preety, PHM, Adrian, whatever. Yeah, so that's really cool. So, and then the story was, I bet you let Dan share how he knows Alex. Because Alex is just heard of the Sabbath like a few weeks ago from Dan. So, yeah, okay, so he figured that out on his own somehow. But yeah, when Dan contacted me and said he wants to come for the whole feast, I was like, oh, all right, okay. And he's like, we got a feast. I mean, God's going to pour his spirit. I got to be there. Okay, all right. But yeah. And then he says, hey, there's right before, like 2 days or 3 days before we're going to start, he's like, hey, there's a guy named Alex who also wants to come for the whole time. I was like, oh, really? Who is he? He's like, he's my friend on Instagram. So I said, have you met him in person? No. So I started to get nervous right away. Like, you haven't met him in person? Is he an Adventist? No. Okay. and then Dan was like, I told him we're vegetarian and he's cool with it. I said, okay, all right. God's been teaching me to kind of like let go of my anxiety, like, because I'm like, oh, I'm at the table, it's going to be stressful. Alex is going to be like, we're going to overwhelm him. He's not going to be able to handle it. And I just thought, no, just let it go. So, and it's worked out really. Alex has taken it really well, and I'm really thankful, Alex. I think a lot of people would be really overwhelmed, but you've been a good sport, and so thank you for that. Yeah, you like it here? Cool. So, yeah, it just shows that we don't need to. Even when Dan first came, I'm like, he was like, can I get baptized? I was like, I don't know, man. You're a rapper. What are people going to think? And but yeah, I asked Ben, and Ben's like, well, he's already father, son, and okay. So I said, okay. So it's been really good, and just sometimes it just shows that sometimes we got to just leave it to God, and God will make everything work out. So I wanted Dan to share some of his story, and he can maybe introduce maybe Alex can share. Their stories are pretty crazy. Alex just one thing. We were in the car driving to the airport. Just one thing. I don't want to. Just a preview. So we were talking about how like, I used to be in the world because I didn't grow up Christian, and Dan too, and Alex just goes and he says, oh yeah, I've lost 2 teeth smoking crack. I'm like, whoa. Oh man, I never smoked crack. I was in the world. And but yeah, so I said, oh, how long you been clean? He's like, yeah, I don't like it anymore. It's boring. So good, cool, okay, good. And so yeah, he'll share some of that. But that was I like that. I like that Alex was so open and was so cool about and just like, and how God is like telling him to stop. And just this morning he was talking about some of his friends overdosing, and especially here in the South, there's lots of Christians. But Alex is from New Hampshire. My dad's from Boston. There's very few Christians there anymore. And so we're saying, yeah, so Alex has to be a good influence to his friends. So, but I'll let Dan start first. So, yeah, Dan, you come up here. And maybe if necessary, I'll ask you some questions. Or you can use the microphone.
Well, praise God. It's good to be in the house of the Lord. Thankful to be able to be here, to be alive, and for everybody to just come here and assemble for the Feast of Tabernacles. It's my first one. Received a tremendous blessing, especially thankful for Brother Jim and all the good food fueling me up during the feast. It's not a feast without the food, right? So we're going to get some spiritual food today. I hope my testimony blesses y'all, but I'd like to start with a word of prayer first. So if y'all could kneel or... Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you once again for another day of life, Lord. I just thank you so much for all those who are gathered here, Lord. I pray that you would just set your hedge of protection about this whole entire holy mountain here of Talking Rock, Lord. And I pray that you just bless all the words that come out of my mouth, Lord. Help me to just recall everything correctly, to give a pure and concise testimony, and just for me to be a channel of your blessings, Lord, as well as my friend Alex here, Lord. I pray that you would just help us to go forward in faith and never to backslide, Lord. And we just pray all these things in the mighty name of your only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Chuck.
All right, everybody. So I don't want to make this too long. It's a long story. But yeah, so I guess I'll just start with the basics and just kind of move on chapter by chapter. So I'm from Florida, flow grown. My parents were Adventists. My father was like 3rd generation Adventist. My mother was like 2nd generation. Her parents converted from Catholicism. But they both kind of grew up in church, and they didn't like the church. So in raising me, like, we would just go to church occasionally, but they instilled the principles of Adventism into me from a very young age. But it was just something, I never liked it. I didn't like the whole idea that I can't do nothing on Saturday, so I would sneak out and start partying from like a really young age, just, going, and I tried drugs very young. And I was influenced in a similar way, like Obadiah's father, Wayne Wright. I was influenced through secular music, and that's what really pushed me towards just hanging out with the wrong crowd. I was heavy into rock and roll and hip-hop at a young age, and just those things influenced my mind in such a wrong direction. I was always fighting and getting in trouble. I had anger issues, And I turned to drugs as a way to just cope with my anxiety and just, with, I wasn't good at making friends, wasn't good with the ladies. I had a basketball dream and I sucked at sports. And so like drugs were like the only place I could find my comfort in. Yeah. And so I turned to drugs at 13 years old. I tried alcohol and I didn't like it. I was actually playing basketball and I threw up all over the basketball court the first time I drank like a ton of beer, and I didn't like it. And but then I tried marijuana, and like it's like I fell in love. It became this thing of like, whenever I can just smoke that joint, whenever I can smoke that blunt, then I'm just like, it's like I'm going to heaven. And I would actually start to feel, it became much like an idol worship for me, I think, because I would feel like when I would smoke that I would be closer to God. I always believed in God when I used drugs, and I believe, oh, God's put this plant here for me to get closer to him because I feel closer to him. I feel better when I use this. And, I was a little kid when I started, really. I didn't have a lot of money, so I would then turn to trying to sell it at school to the other kids to try to make money to fund my own habit. And it just became just a vicious cycle. This went on while I was in high school up until I was first convicted about God when one of my friends died when I was 16 years old. His name was Yared. Rest in peace, Yared Gaudier. And this what first drew my mind to God and the seriousness of life. Was the last time I was ever with this friend. We were in the gym locker room at school, and we were smoking marijuana inside of the locker room. And I knew about Christ. I never told anybody as a Christian, but I knew about God. My parents had taught me about the Bible, and I just knew what I was doing was wrong. But after I saw him that day, he actually accidentally shot himself in the head, and he passed away. But he was alive for 24 hours after that. That was the first time I ever really started praying in my life, was praying for him that he would be saved. Because I felt so guilty that I could have told him about Jesus, but instead I told him, hey, let's go smoke a joint. And so that first got me more serious. I tried to quit smoking on my own, and I did for a while. I started making better grades in school, and I graduated high school. I got a job, and I was just trying my hardest just to do right in life. But, I got really stressed out as a young adult, like around 18, and that led me back to marijuana. I began to use much heavier. Financial stresses caused me to take more risks to try to sell more and all that stuff. And so I just got deeper down like this rabbit hole. And it was really bad for a long time. I began to try other drugs, opiates, and things of that nature. And then I had another friend that died, and another guilt trip situation, and my grandfather died. And then I had got with this girl who was claimed to be a Christian, but she was more of a worldling, and we had broke up. And just all these things were always going on. This is all these bad, the drugs were always like there, But in the midst of all this, as I told y'all, I would back up a little bit. At 16, I began to think about God. So at 17, my mother found a ministry in Florida, where I'm from, and I began to go with her. She went about 3 times without me, and then she asked, do you want to come? And at the time, I was using drugs. I was, I didn't want to go, but I was like, I felt convicted. Well, I should just go. I'll just check it out. And I did. And that was Saved to Serve ministry down in Ocoee, Florida, Henriquez Church. And I was convicted there, by the Spirit of God, that I need to read the Bible. That I know I'm living wrong, but at least I need to open this Bible up and try. So I started to, as I was living this life of using drugs and selling drugs, I started to go to church on Sabbath. I started to read the Bible, and I was just playing pretend, in front of my parents and at the church, like I was holy. But I knew what I was doing was wrong. I would go to church, and immediately when the sun would go down, sometimes I wouldn't even wait till the sun would go down. I'd be lighting up and smoking and going out to go make runs and sell marijuana. And I just, I couldn't break those chains. I could never break those chains. And I started to wonder why. And it was when I was about 19, 20, that my uncle, who's an Adventist, sent me, he actually sent it to my mom, and she sent it to me, a video on YouTube from Restitution Ministries about the Father and Son. And that's when I first learned about the message. And so I studied it out for myself, and I came to find out, oh, maybe I can't break these chains that I'm in because I'm worshiping the wrong God. I've been praying to the wrong God this whole entire time. And so I actually brought it up to some people in the church, and they just told, no, we don't talk about that. And like that's a non-issue, and we don't ever like bring that up again, pretty much. And then I from what I understood, I was like, hold on, oh, no, these people are lying to me. So it was after that I just decided, well, I'm just not going to go to the church anymore then, because they're not worshiping the true God. So I don't want to be part of. And they were really hostile towards me. So I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. And so I left the church completely. And this was after my grandfather died. I went back, like, just totally. Like, I was already in the world playing the pretend Christian thing, and I just went totally into the world. But I would still read the Bible. I would still pray in the midst of that. But I was totally just using drugs, on drugs, selling drugs. I still maintained a full-time job. During the daytime I would be sober, but immediately I get off and just start using and selling. And yeah, it was just a vicious cycle. And I got into doing secular music because I saw it as God gave me these talents. I had been writing songs since I was 10 years old. I told y'all I became fascinated with music at around 8 and 9 with rock and roll and hip hop, and I began to write my own songs like quietly at 10 years old. And just backtracking a little bit, I wrote songs for like 3 years and didn't share them with anyone. But one day my friends caught me and they're like, show us the song. So I did, and I began to like so then I felt really confident in what I did, and my friends would do things like, oh, you're gonna be a rapper, and they bring their chains and put their chains on me and stuff like that. And I would start rapping at the high school, and that seemed to be the thing that drew all this attention towards me. And I felt like, well, this is my gift. I mean, this is what people love this. So, but when my friend had died at 16, I had been around like a lot of people that were doing that, and I just seen they were all into drugs. And so I decided to get away from that for a while. But after I had this experience with the church and I felt church hurt, that's what drew me back to it. Was I felt like, well, now this whole church lifestyle, this not going to help me. This not going to. I was never able to get off drugs going to church. Maybe if I can just become successful enough with this music, then this is going to be the thing that's going to help me. It's going to help my family financially. I started chasing the money, chasing the fame, and I felt like those things will help me to get out of all this negativity. But it didn't. In fact, I just only got worse and worse. And there were several times I almost overdosed as well on opiates and things like that. And I'm just thankful to God that He preserved my life in the midst of those things. But it was the experience I had while I was when I left the church, while I was in the world, I was performing my music at bars and clubs and just on drugs all the time at nighttime. And as I was in all of that, I would read the Bible and I would pray. I would feel consumed by guilt in my conscience that the lifestyle I'm living is not right, that I know I can't continue to go on like this forever. But I try to just justify it. Well, God knows my heart. God knows I'm not hurting nobody else really, but I was causing other people to sin. I was leading them to hell. Through everything I was doing, I was promoting drugs. I was promoting fornication. I was living those things. And it was one weekend, I remember it specifically, where I decided, well, I'm just not going to use drugs this weekend. So I didn't use drugs on the Sabbath, and I prayed that Sabbath. I went into the woods. I was living here in Georgia. I was actually in Atlanta. I went into a park, and I just went into that park and prayed all day long. I had to actually work a night shift, and I went into work that night, and I was sober that night, and I was sober the whole next day too. I was at work the whole next day just sober, and I got off. I didn't use any drugs, and I didn't eat the whole time. I fasted and prayed that whole weekend. And I felt like God was calling me, like, you need to step away from this lifestyle. But I was like, there's no way I can do it, And then the next day, I went into the music studio to go make some more secular music, and there's a ton of people in there, and everybody was passing around the joint. And so I smoked the joint, which I would normally do like every single day. But for some reason that time it was different. I felt like I was possessed by demonic spirits. And when I had that, it was just overwhelming. I felt myself start to shake, and I could sense the presence of the enemy in the room, and there were some of the conversations that were going on between these people. They were actually watching a video of somebody getting shot to death on a live stream, another rapper who was shot to death, and I just started thinking that could be me. This is where I'm putting myself in this position with what I'm doing. And I actually ran to the bathroom. I just felt like I was being controlled. Like I didn't have control over myself, but with the little bit of control I had, ran to the bathroom, got on my knees and prayed. I said, God, if you just deliver me from this right now, I feel the worst I've ever felt in my life. If you deliver this from me, I'll give all this up. And so I started to feel that the feeling of the evil presence leave. and that I was tempted to think, oh, I was just high, I'm just just stupid thoughts, but I was convicted. I was like, you know what, I wasn't just on drugs. This was a real demonic presence, and this was a real spiritual warfare. The people I was around, some of them were 30-something degree Freemasons. They were claiming to be Christian and also most likely worshiping the devil. And so I knew that I was around evil people, just, and I was corrupted, and I knew I had to make a change. So I told everybody in the studio that night. I actually lived in that music studio, and I told my audio engineer, I told him, look, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go back to my hometown, delete all this music. I don't want to hear this music ever again. I said, I'm done. And I texted everybody in my phone. I told them, I'm quitting. I quit the music. I'm done. Like, and I told everyone, Jesus is coming soon. And I started fasting and praying after that. And I was going to give up music completely. I said, well, I'm just not going to ever do music again. I'm giving up. Like, I know it's a gift, but I seem to only be able to use it for evil. So I said, I'm giving it up. But about 2 days later, I was convicted. I was still living in this music studio. I was convicted by the Spirit of the Lord that I need to use my talent for Him, and I shouldn't give it up. And so I began to record Christian music while still living in this studio where I had been recording secular music. And the engineer was actually so convicted that he actually ended up shutting down that studio. God blessed him with a restaurant, so he was able to still sustain his livelihood and feed his family. And he ended up shutting down that whole music studio because of what he saw in me. Someone who was much older than me, who had been running that studio for I think like 20 years, and he shut the whole thing down. It took him about a year to where he was convicted, but that began his journey as well. And he doesn't believe in the truth of the Father and Son, but we talked about it, and yeah, it's just amazing. So, at that point, I made the decision. I ended up moving back to my hometown in Florida with my parents, and I felt like kind of like the prodigal son. Like I had wronged them. I'd been a bad example to my sister. I told my younger sister I feel like the worst brother in the world because I showed her such a bad example when I was younger. And, like I wasn't a good son to my parents because I had just like left them and was doing drugs. But they're Christians and they received me back, and I was just so thankful for that. And I began to try to just do this work for God. When I came back, I didn't have a job, and so I would just go out to the streets and try to sell my music. And I was really failing at that at first. And I actually ended up, some of my friends were construction. I was able to get a job, and I started doing roofing construction for a while with them. And I would still sell my music on the side, and it was just every single day seemed to be a struggle though, and every day it was like I was working hard and I wasn't making progress, and I began to get very discouraged. I had broke up with my girlfriend here in Georgia, and I felt really lonely. And it's just during the midst of all that time I began to think, well, God, where are you? Like, I told you I would give all this. I kind of thought like, well, if I give all the bad stuff up for God, maybe he'll bless me. And I didn't realize how blessed I was at the time. I was set free. But it was in this that, began to backslide. I would use drugs still occasionally, but I was really just seeking and trying to stop all that. And, I would fail, and I would just get back up, with God's help, and I just kept praying. And it was during this time where I discovered this ministry on YouTube, Talking Rock Sabbath Chapel. I discovered several others, Pioneer Health and Missions, Line of Truth. And as I discovered these ministries, I just began to listen a lot, and it helped me a lot. I was finally able to give up the smoking. Was the first thing I gave up. That was 2.5 years ago, praise God. That was a 10-year habit I had, and I'm so thankful, that my lungs are clear. Some of y'all know, I've told y'all, asthma runs in my family, and I have an uncle that died of asthma, so I never should have smoked in the first place. And I'm still, I guess, dealing with the repercussions of that, with my lungs being weak, but I'm thankful to God that He set me free from that. And yeah, it was, this was over 2 years ago. And the cycle, kind of continued of me working hard and just falling into these places where I would fall back into this sin or that sin, and I would just feel so condemned. But I just kept pushing and trying, and God did some good things for me. There was a young lady in South Africa who I'm going to ask y'all to pray for. She had messaged me during this time, and we began to study the Bible together over the phone. And she actually ended up becoming my girlfriend. She converted to the truth through the messages that I was sharing with her. And she really encouraged me to just keep on doing this music. And I found that, with my intentions to do music for the Lord, that sometimes I had the right intentions, but I was getting the wrong results. So I would see sometimes where I will, make a song, but I just would then, as I believe it was Brother Jim, you were sharing about the doctors, how very few of them will actually go back and update their information. I find myself having to do it. So I found myself having to just go back and trash all that original stuff because I was just coming in with a tainted mind. And as my mind has grown closer to Christ, I'm coming in and I'm having to just really realize that what I do needs to be acceptable in the sight of God, and it needs to make the impact. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. And so, yeah, things just continued on with me working hard and stuff. And I got into the relationship with this girl overseas, and we weren't able to see each other. Real similar situation to Ben and Marie. And finally, God blessed me earlier this year. I was finally able to go full time with my music ministry back in March, and so that was the first blessing. I had been working 2 and 3 jobs, and God finally blessed me with the infrastructure to be able to do this full time for Him. And then shortly after, I had enough finances. I was able to go and date my girlfriend over in South Africa, and that was a big blessing. And but shortly after that, some things happened, and she broke up with me. But it was right at the time I had made the decision that I want to come to this ministry and I want to get baptized. And so I still proceeded on with my baptism in the midst of the attacks from the devil. And God used all these situations to show me things in my character that still needed to be worked on. As I already, had given up drugs. I told y'all I gave up smoking 2.5 years ago, but I still had struggled with using actually harder drugs I would use occasionally. But I gave all that up. It's been 19 months. I've been fully sober. Glory to God. And, so it was just, God's been working on my character this whole time. And so I started reading after I got baptized here, which was this huge blessing. Even the day I got baptized, I got to testify to y'all about. So I got baptized here at Talking Rock Sabbath Chapel. It was July the 31st, Sabbath. And at that day, I had came up with a friend of mine from Florida. We were actually going to a Christian music festival. So right after I got baptized, we had to go to the Christian music festival. And at this festival, there were these people who I had started writing, because I've always wanted to do a music album, and I've never been able to get to do it, because every time I try, it's like I'm never able to come up with a cohesive piece of art. It's like when my mind was on drugs, I would just make these songs, but they would never fit together for a cohesive project, because I guess my mind just wasn't able to, as limited as I thought the drugs would increase my creativity, they actually decreased it. But I started I felt convicted by God, he putting these ideas in my mind. He told me, use the talents for Him, so I got to do this to the fullest of my ability. And so I started writing down, okay, I want to make an album, and I want this person to be on my album, and this person, and these people are all they're pretty big in the Christian music industry. There's no way I'm ever even gonna get to talk to these people. Well, I went to that music festival right after I got baptized and met almost every single person I had wrote down on that list, and got some of their phone numbers, and we've talked, and I actually shared even with some of them about the Father and Son, and I'm in the process of making my first album. I'm so thankful to God that He blessed me with with those connections with these people, because it just wasn't me. There's no way that would have ever happened. And so I just see God held back a lot of these blessings for me until I was ready. The stuff that I was looking for in the world, I found it in God. And the stuff I was looking for even in my previous relationship with this woman, I was looking for comfort. I read, right after I got baptized, I read Adrian Eben's book, Comforter, and I found my comfort in Christ. And everything, when it comes to my financial stability, I rely fully upon God, and I just work in faith. And so as all the things I've struggled with in my life, I've seen God fix a lot of these problems. I'm still in need. And I guess it's part of being open and vulnerable. I am asking the whole church family to pray for me, as I'm going to South Africa pretty much after this feast. Try to get my ex-girlfriend back, so appreciate it if y'all could pray for me on that. But I wanted to talk to y'all about, just, where I'm at now, with this feast and just the culmination of what all these things have led up to. So, I got baptized, and when I got baptized, it was a powerful moment for me. I felt the Spirit of God come into when Ben dunked me in that water, and the water was freezing, and I felt the Spirit of God warm it up down there at that waterfall. And I didn't feel it when I went down there the other day, so I know that was the Spirit of God. That wasn't just, that was real. Okay, and even after getting baptized, I was still struggling with a lot of condemnation in my mind. I was still struggling with just a lot of my bad temperament. And I found myself, I believe it was just like a few days after I got baptized, just blowing up and cursing, and I felt so condemned. I've struggled with anger my whole life. You know, like I said, when I was a little kid, I used to get in a lot of fights. I went to anger management 3 times, ordered by the court, and nobody could fix my problem with anger. I've always just been like, if somebody gives it to me, I'm giving it right back, you know. But God really helped to sort this stuff up out of me. And so yeah, it was after I got baptized. I was struggling with this condemnation, struggling with my anger, struggling with my diet. You know, I was convicted when I ate the good vegan lunch here. I was like, this vegan food is so good. Like, I wish I could eat like this every day. But I get back home and I'm, you know, going through the drive-thru at McDonald's, and I'm just feeling like crap. And I'm like, I know I need to stop this. But, you know, I started fasting and praying, and I read Comforter, I read Identity Wars, I read Dana Tassin's book, Political Christianity, which really helped me out a lot, because when I first, you know, came into this message and I found all these truths, I started to get real hard on like a lot of people I knew and just people I didn't know, and just come at them and tell them that, you know, you guys are going to hell, you know, pretty much, like, and not knowing that God doesn't, I was condemning others because I felt condemned, you know. And when I've learned now more about the character of God, I know God doesn't condemn me. Therefore, I have no right to condemn anybody else. I've learned what it is to really do mission work, which is showing unconditional love. That's real ministry, is showing the love of Christ, being the love of Christ in our lives to others when they don't deserve it, because none of us deserve to even be here. And so God helped me out a lot. You know, I was able to give some of the things that I struggled with, just things that seem simple. Now, after having come off drugs, you know, things like soda and coffee and meat, those things seem like minor things, but I began to get convicted. I need to give this up. I need to give that up. And so I began to give these things up, and I just started to really just hear the voice of God clearer than I've ever heard before. My spiritual eyesight just became open, and I began to have just greater spiritual discernment, which I'm still, it's an everyday thing, you know. And I learned about the feast, I believe it's just a week or two prior to my getting baptized, and I was really confused on it at first, and people were telling me, no, we don't need to keep those feasts. That's just legalism. That's just rituals. And so I didn't know, you know, I was like, I'm about to get baptized. I know this ministry, they keep the feasts, and I don't know, you know. I know they have the truth about God, but are these feasts, are they just like, you know, is this some cult or something? I don't know. So I started studying it. I listened to some things Dana Tassin had sent me, as well as Pastor Cramlick, and I did my own studies as well. And I was on the plane here to get baptized. I was convicted about the feast, so I knew I needed to start keeping these feasts. You know, I just knew it. I had that solid conviction from God. And so, you know, before I even came up here, there's Feast of Trumpets, and I just did my best to participate in that. And I saw the Lord working even during that time. And the enemy tried to attack my mind, tell me, don't come to Feast of Tabernacles. You're a sinner. You can't come here. You're not supposed to be here. You're bringing sin into the camp. You're going to mess up the whole thing. You're going to defile the whole thing. And God used that whole situation, it was about a week before I came here, to show me that it wasn't about me. It was about him. And this is what I want to relay to y'all before I talk about the importance of just some of the things that me and my brother Dana Tassin here, and I'm going to introduce to y'all Alex, some of the things we're doing. You know, the glory goes to God alone. The glory of God is not shared with any man. And so I think for all of us as Christians, you know, we understand these truths. We're called out to be a separate and a peculiar people. But you know, it's hard sometimes, because the flesh will never be able to keep the law of God. The flesh will never be perfect. But how do we find perfection? It has nothing to do with us, but everything to do with Christ. And so when we remember that, it's about us submitting to the will of Christ. It's about us believing. Pastor Ben talked about this the other night, about how when all we have to do is believe, and it sounds so easy, but it is hard. When I was in the midst of that, you can't come to the feast, the devil was telling me, you should just end your life right now. You should kill yourself. And I was really thinking about it too, but I was scared. I was like, shoot, if I kill myself, that's it. There's no more chance for me. And that's what I began to think about. And I actually texted Ben. I'm being real open with y'all. I texted Ben. I said, I feel like I've committed unpardonable sin. I asked him to just pray for me, and he prayed for me, and I felt the Spirit of God come into me. And I knew I've not committed an unpardonable sin. The unpardonable sin is if I end my life and give God no more chances to save me. And so and Danny even told me, he said, all you have to do is believe. And I said, I believe. I confess. When I spoke it with my mouth, I felt it. I knew that I'm forgiven. And so when, like Pastor Ben talked about the other night, when we allow Christ to just come in and do what he does, he purifies us. He cleanses us. And that's what he's doing in my life, and I know in the lives of all of us, as we're all here seeking God, we can receive the promises that he who began a good work will be faithful to complete it. So with that being said, I just want to talk to y'all a little bit about one more thing, and I'd like to say a prayer and introduce Alex over here. So, I want to introduce y'all to a little bit to the what I do in the essence of the diversity of ministry, because I understand here that God wants order, and this ministry is very conservative. And I appreciate, just I told Gary the other day, I appreciate just everything that's been brought here, just the systems that we have, the order, just, it's a holy mountain. It's everything here, from the lifestyle center to the sanctuary to just the way we're keeping these feasts and the order, the scheduling. Everything is divinely appointed, and I appreciate that. But I also think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding when it comes to the youth, and there's a disconnect. So I want to bring a connection from my generation, and also just from me coming out of the secular world, and just how can we bridge this gap from this ministry to the rest of the world, because the Bible says in I believe it's Revelation chapter 17, come out of her, talking about, the system of Babylon. My people, God's people, are out here in the streets. God's people are in these other Protestant and Catholic churches, and Danny was talking about Buddhist temples. God's people are all across the spectrum. And so I think it's important for us to understand, that it's one thing we let Christ live in us and speak to others, but there has to be, the meat of the message has to go out to the world. Ellen G. White says we have much to learn and much to unlearn, and we don't have a lot of time. The times we're living in are really of the essence. Christ is coming soon. No man knoweth the day nor the hour, but we do know that it's soon, because we see the signs all around us. And obviously for any of us, death can come at any moment. And it's not to scare nobody, but this is just the reality of the world we live in. And we understand that the message of the sanctuary, Christ being in the most holy place, that our names can come up at any moment. The investigative judgment, we know that these things are real. And so it's how do we, in understanding these truths, convey this to the rest of the world that doesn't even know who Christ is? Well, we know who Christ is, so that's a good start. When we know our identity in Christ, and that we're valued by him alone, that by his sacrifice of dying for us, when we know that it was a true sacrifice for a father, the one true God, to give up his only son, that they're not just playing no games. This isn't no role playing. We can now convey that in a way that's relatable to anyone else, because we're all at some point, children or parents, both. So that relationship is able to be, this is something that everybody can understand. And so what God has shown me, though, as Danny was talking about earlier, is, when it comes to the young people, they're so far out there. They don't want to come to church. They don't want to listen to any of these messages. They don't want to listen to anybody, period. It's a spirit of rebellion. The love of many is being waxed cold, and I've been seeing it every single day when I'm out in this world, this wicked world we live in. And we know the devil is the prince of this world, and we give him no glory, because Christ has already won the victory. And this is why we can be bold in the way we reach others. But something that we do that I believe is important, and I believe this can be done all sorts of ways, is just finding new ways. How do we connect with especially the youth? Because, a lot of the older generations, people are so set in their ways, and a lot of them, they're closing doors, and God can reach anybody at any age, but these youth, they're impressionable, they're young. And like I said the other night, I was talking to Obadiah, and I was telling him about just how, when I was young, and I was listening to all this evil secular music, it was mesmerizing almost. It's like it put a spell on me, and that led me down this wrong path. And I wish there would have been somebody, an older role model, somebody that was, doing something constructive that would have taken me in a different path. And there was nobody for me at that time. And so what I do, God gave me this talent, and I thought, well, at first I thought I should bury it. When he told me to use it for him, I did hip-hop music. I do it for the Lord. I'm not here to do that for y'all today. I want to tell y'all about the mission that God has given me, which is this music is from the church. There's a music that is for the church. My mother often asks me, do you think that music you do is going to be in heaven? And I tell her, no, there's not going to be any need for it. But there's a need. I want to tell y'all about a real need. There are people, as Alex is going to share with you, and I can share with you from my personal experience. There's a lot of young people who are out here dying. They're overdosing on drugs. Bless you, bro. In Jesus' name. They're overdosing on drugs. They're losing their lives. They're, just caught up in fornication. They're caught up in homosexuality. All these lifestyles that are contrary to the will and the image of God. That sin is destroying, especially our young people. The devices, and I had a dream recently. I'm going to share with y'all real quick too. I had this dream where all these young people were on their cell phones, and the enemy was coming through the cell phones and snatching their souls from them. And the new technology we have has made so much evil much more easily accessible, to where parents do the best to raise their children, but now the parents are no longer raising their children. The technology is, their minds are being accessed in such a way that is so rampant, more rampant than ever before. The devil is as a lion seeking to kill, steal, and destroy. And so I take a very solemn approach to what I do, which is trying to share the gospel with these young people. So what I do is I use this music I do as a tool to and I want to try to put as much emphasis on the truth of who God is, on the Sabbath truth, on the truth of that the law is the law of liberty, that there is no legalism in keeping these feasts or the 10 Commandments or any of these things, but these actually set us free from the bondage of sin. And so that's something that has been really effective with a lot of the youths in just gaining their interest, because they may never even stumble upon these sermons. And of course, we can all do a better job to bring these sermons to them, to bring the literature to them. But for a lot of them, the only thing that they're listening to this garbage music. That's all they feed their minds. And so when we're doing music as that's meant for the youth, it's a way to get into their minds in an unexpected way, and they're receiving it, and then that piques their interest. And so I use it as a tool to then share Bible studies with them, to share the ministries. But it's just another way to gain interest. And I think a lot of people here have had some creative ideas as well, like you were sharing, Malcolm, with Army of Youth, and just how you have all these, or Army of Truth, I'm sorry, and how you have all these young people coming together, and we're creating content for the internet that's going to inspire other young people. And when they see that we're different, I think that's what they have to see, and they have to see the Spirit of Christ in us. This goes for all of us, each and every single one of us, regardless of your age, your background, your ethnicity, all of these things. It's the Spirit that is going to convict others. When they see that we are a peculiar people, that we're set apart. Sharon was sharing with me about Gracie, how when you worked at the grocery store, and some people notice that you dress differently and things like that. We're being a living, a walking testimony, and so that's what we aspire to be. Me, Danny, Alex, we're all going to be working for the Lord on some music stuff during Tabernacles. I ask for y'all prayers. And, I'm going to introduce Alex now. Anybody have any questions, though, before that? Or if not, I'd just like to say a prayer with y'all before I introduce Alex. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, the new music. Here, I got something for you, Gary. I'll give you some. Anybody wants some? I got some here. So, yeah. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Glory to God. All right. I'm going to just say a prayer with y'all then, and we'll have Alex come up. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you so much once again for bringing me into the house of the Lord, bringing all of us here as brothers and sisters in Christ, Lord, as we are the body of Christ. I pray And I just thank you for just opening the hearts of your people and allowing them to understand what you've brought me to an understanding of. And I pray that we all would understand each member's function of this body, Lord, that we would understand how to better support and assist each other. I pray that you would just take anything that's not of you, take it out of us, Lord, and just fill us with your spirit, Lord. And I pray that as Alex comes up here, that his testimony would just be just a powerful revival in the hearts of many, and that you would be glorified alone, Lord. We thank you so much for just life and health, and just all the things, your mercy, your grace, which we do not deserve, your unconditional love, which you impart to us and help us to impart to others. And we just pray all these things in the mighty name of your only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, y'all. Alex.
I just want to say also, it's okay for us to have different tastes in music. It's okay. Yeah, it's not you don't have to. Some older people are like, I gotta understand this young people's music. I want to be in touch with their times and force themselves to listen to. It's okay, like to not. Yeah, people like different things too, the taste wise. Yeah, use that one. That one.
Hey, how's it? Hey everybody, I'm Alex. So I guess to start the story, I guess when I was a baby, because like a lot, like I'm only 25, but like I've just been, I don't really think I've been through a lot, but just been through like different stuff. So like a lot, like some stuff like a normal like 25-year-old just wouldn't go through. Like So I was born in 1995 and on October 2nd, and then I think in February of 1996, I went to the doctor. Well, my mom brought me to the doctors, and I just had a checkup, but the doctor felt a lump like by my kidney on this side, I think, or like right here. And so she said to bring me to the hospital in Boston just to go see what it was, and they found a tumor there that they call it neuroblastoma, and it was attached to my adrenal glands, so they took out one of my adrenal glands, and I think that was like a first miracle of God, like in my life, because like when I went to the surgeons, they said like they were like, yeah, we never would have found like that tumor because it was so small, and they said that doctor we had was really a gift that she found it, and then after that. I was pretty I've always been pretty healthy. Like I never had any problems swimming again. After that, I never had cancer again or anything, and it was just a one-time thing. But I think with neuroblastoma, if they find it when you're an infant, usually you survive it. But if they find it, like if you're, I think like 2 or older or 4 or older, I'm not sure. It's usually really bad. So I think it was just God watching out for me then. And then when I was 6 years old, I went back to the doctor. Well, my mom always brought me to the doctors, but I went back to the doctor when I was 6 years old because I was starting to get tics, like my mom noticed. So she brought me to the doctor, and they said I had chronic motor tic syndrome, which now they would just call it Tourette syndrome, but back then they said if you had like body or facial tics, then it was chronic motor tics, and if you had verbal tics, it was Tourette's. But I'm not sure when. I think in like 2016 or 2017 they lumped the definitions together, so it's just all Tourette syndrome. So after that, it was kind of, they put me on this medicine, clonidine, and I was on that from the time I was like 6 to 14. And as a kid, like, we were pretty happy. Like, everything was pretty good. But then when we started to get older and started to, like, recognize stuff, me and my brothers kind of became more ungrateful to our parents. Because we kind of, like, they didn't have a lot of money or anything. Like, we lived in a small house. And, like, we just got ungrateful. But then, like, as I got older, I kind of understood, like, they were going through a lot. And like they really tried the best they could, so I'm actually really grateful for them now because they really tried their hardest, I think. Because I think when I was 2 years old, my older brother Nick, we have different moms, but he got sent away because he got in trouble, and the state said he either has to go to like juvenile hall or to live in placement housing for a few years, and he had to live in the placement housing for 10 years. So that I think stressed my parents out a lot too, and so like they I didn't realize when I was a little kid like how much stress they were dealing with too, because like my mom didn't have a job until I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, and then she went back to school to become a nurse because we didn't have health insurance. So with 4 boys, you need health insurance. Is a big thing because we're always playing outside and stuff. So she went back to get she went back to school. Like my grandma and grandpa helped her, paid for school so she could become a nurse and get us health insurance. And then after that, everything was pretty good. Like I was 13 when I started not taking the medicine for the tics, which is it was just Clonidine. I'm not really sure what kind of medicine it was. Like sometimes they give it for people with anxiety, and some people for like alcohol and like other kinds of withdrawals. But yeah, that's just what they gave me. And then after that, I was like 13 years old, and then when I was 13, I kind of started getting into drugs and stuff like that. Like I smoked pot a few times when I was 13. Like I tried cigarettes, I think, when I was like 10 or 11, but I never really started them until like I was like 18 or 19, like started smoking them heavy. And then I tried like pills a few times, like Vicodin when I was like 13, 14. But from the time I was like 13 to 16, I only tried stuff like a few times. Like I never really got too into stuff. But then like when I was 16, almost 17, I started doing stuff like every day. And then like me and my older brother, my older brother didn't live at home, but we were always really close. And like we would hang out a lot. And my brother lived in the city, but we lived in like a smaller town. But he got into drugs like a lot before I did, like a lot more before I did. Like and then when I was 19, we started doing, like, we would just be hanging out together, and, like, we would start to do, like, heroin and crack and stuff like that. And after that, I was kind of just living in, like, it wasn't, like, bad, but it was just kind of, like, I had no idea what was going on, really, until maybe like December of last year. I just had like no idea anything that was really going on because it was all just kind of like a blur. And then like sometimes a lot of stuff would happen that I couldn't explain. And then like from the time I was 19 to 25 now, well, I'm turning 26 on October 2nd this year in like a week. But I was pretty heavy on drugs that whole time, and there's a lot of stuff I stuff I couldn't explain. Like even like when I tried to get sober, a lot of times stuff I couldn't explain was happening. And then when I was 22, I went to this mental hospital in Lynn, Massachusetts. And when I first got there, I had no idea what was going on. I honestly thought I had died and went to hell, because I got there and it was the middle of the night, and it's kind of like secretive when they bring you places like that, because I don't know really. They kind of like wait until like the middle of the night in the hospital when no one's there, and they'd kind of like rush you out to a place, and it was kind of seemed like really strange to me, like someone's almost like kidnapping me or something. Like I didn't know what was going on. And so I remember I was in the intake room, and I was there for like 3 or 4 hours, and I got to this elevator, and when I was in the intake room, for some reason I thought that they were going to give me like some kind of injection, and I was going to fall asleep for like 100 years and wake up in the future. And I don't know why I thought that. That's just what I thought was going to happen. But then I got to this elevator, and the elevator, I was like, oh no, like this is bad. And then, because we were in the basement, and that's where the intake was. They call it the rubber room. I don't know what they call it that, but I was in there, and it's in the basement, and the only way you can go is up in the elevator. But when I got in the elevator and the elevator started to move, it felt like we were going down. And that's why I thought I was going to hell. And then I was just walking around. We got to the floor where I was staying at, and I was just kind of walking around, and it kind of had like this weird, like kind of real eerie vibe. And like, it was just strange. Like, it was a completely new place, but I was just like, all right, well, this is where I'm going to be for eternity. And so I was kind of looking around, and then eventually I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, it was a bright, sunny day. And I looked out the window, and, well, first, when I thought to went to hell, too, is because they call it the city of sin, because it's in between Salem, Massachusetts, and Boston. And I don't know why they just call it the city of sin. And that's why too I thought I went to hell. But then I woke up and I saw the view because I was at Bay Ridge Hospital. It's like a mental facility, and it's the highest point in Lynn, Massachusetts. Like, it's on this big hill, and it overlooks all the ocean and all the city, and you can see all, like, the city. Like, you can see Salem there, and then you see all the city of Lynn, and then you see all the Boston skyline. And I woke up and looked out the window. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't die and go to hell. I died and went to heaven. And I thought that, and then I started really freaking out because I would see people in the hospital, like other patients, and they looked like older versions of people I grew up with in school. Like, they literally looked like, and I don't think I was hallucinating. I think it was just how the people looked, but it's just, like, there's kids I knew at school, like this kid Michael, and there's literally this older version of him there. And I thought that it was just, okay, well, we're all in heaven, but they died when they were older. So when you're in heaven, like, you don't age. You're just like the age you are when you die. So that's why I still look young and they still look older. And then, yeah, it's just, I thought I died and went to heaven after that. But then, like, my family came to visit me, and, like, I started talking, like, I was afraid to talk to the doctors. Like, I didn't talk to them at all because they would always ask strange questions. And when I got there, too, I had no idea how I got there because some of the people were like, well, how'd you get here? Like, usually people, like, they're just talking to me like just normal, like, trying to be friendly, and just, hey, like, how'd you get here? And I was like, I have no idea. And then they're like, well, usually there's only 3 ways you get here. And it's like, you either commit suicide and you wake up in the hospital, or you overdose and you wake up in the hospital, or it's aliens. And it was strange because a few different people asked me those same questions too, and they all asked the same. They're like, well, was it suicide, was it overdose, or was it aliens? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea how I got here. And then the doctors would ask questions too, like, do you think you can talk to spirits? Like, do you think you can get messages from, like, TVs or radios or, like, books and stuff like that? And they ask stuff like, do you think you have supernatural powers? And so that's why I thought it's something with, like, the mental health stuff. It's something spiritual going on. Like, I don't know what it is. Yeah, real doctors, like psychologists. And, yeah, I think they're psychologists. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know why. It was just freaking me out. Like, you have to fill out paperwork when I was there, and I wouldn't even fill out the paperwork. I would just, like, write scribbles and just, like, write through all the lines and just, like, pass it back to him. Like, I'm not filling it out. Because I thought it was like some CIA trap or something. Oh, yeah, I don't know. But that was the first time I went to hospital. And then the second time I went, they put me on, after that, they were like, we have no idea what he has, and we just think he's just going crazy. So they just gave me this drug, Risperdal, which is an antipsychotic, but it makes you feel like a zombie. And so I just stopped taking them, and I went back to another hospital like a few weeks later. This was in Lowell, Massachusetts. And it was just called Lowell Treatment Center. But this place was a really bad hospital. And I was in this hospital, and they told me I had to get an injection, a long-lasting injection of an antipsychotic called Invega Sustenna. And they said I had to get that, or I'm never going to see my family again. They're going to send me to a state hospital. And, like, state hospitals are just the psych wards of prisons. So I was like, oh, dang, like, I can't go there because I'm going to go there forever. And so I was like, yeah, all right, I'll just take the shot. And so I took the shot, and then for like 6 months, it was just, you feel like you don't feel anything really. You just feel like, it's not like, depressed isn't the right word, because the antipsychotic drugs, they block all your dopamine and serotonin from getting in your system. So, like, your brain is just blocked out of it, so you don't feel like any pleasure from anything. Like, you eat your favorite food, and it's just like nothing. Like, you listen to, like, your favorite music, and that's just like the little things. Like you just, your whole look at life just kind of goes down, and, like, you don't, it's like depression, but it's not. It's like a different kind of depression. Like, it's just different. There's no way to really explain it, just because, like, all your happy chemicals just, like, don't go anywhere pretty much. And so from that point, after I got the shot, I'd always believe in God and stuff, and I'd always believe in Jesus, but I'd never really pray to God unless like I was in a bad spot. Cause like one time I got in trouble and I had to go to jail for 20 days. So like I would pray to God then, cause like people said they were like gonna kill me and stuff. So I was like, oh man, like I don't want to die. So I just gotta pray. And so I'd pray and like nothing happened to me. And then, but like after that, like I stayed praying for like a few weeks after. But then like I forgot about it. You just like get back in the world and you just forget about stuff. So sometimes, like not like every day, but like we go on like Christmas, Easter, and then like a few times throughout the year. When we started out Catholic, and then my dad got away from the Catholic Church, like probably when I was like 9 or 10, we started just going to like a normal Christian church. And then, yeah, so I would always pray, but only really like when I was in bad times, except when I was in high school a few times, I would just pray like every night just because I think it was God just kind of like really first time meeting him and stuff. So I'd only pray when I was bad times, but when I was on the antipsychotic injection, I would pray every night. I was like, God, if there's like any way I can get out of this, just like help me. Because it's so strange because I think it's a micro injection and it's not like it sounds crazy, but it's not something like they're tracking you or anything. It's a little motor, and microchip is a little chip that just releases a little bit of medication into you each day. And so it goes in your arm, and it's just, you think like over time it'll get easier, but like every single day for like this whole 6 months it stays in your system. It's just like every day, it's just like it hits your brain, and then just all the time you don't feel anything. So then I really started praying then, and then I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Because about a month after I got the injection, the hospital in Lowell I was in got shut down permanently because they said there's like inhumane conditions. There's too many people fighting there, like patients getting in fights, and like I think one of the doctors was getting sued too, and that's how they're just like, all right, yeah, just shut it down, so no one got in trouble or anything. But then it started making me think too, like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Like I think I like met the devil or something in there. So after that, I kept praying every day, and then one time, you say? Yeah.
Maybe somebody showed you this in Revelation, but it's talking about was it the beast or the overcame them with their sorceries?
Oh, pharmakia. Yeah. Yeah, Dan showed me that actually. We were talking about that stuff. I definitely think the mental drugs are definitely something with pharmakia going on. Yeah, I don't know really, but I definitely think that. And so I would just keep praying. But then one time in February, I remember, I was just like, all right, God, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I'm just going to kill myself tomorrow. So, like, if I don't feel anything better, yeah, I'm just going to kill it because I just can't keep living like this. So there's nothing like, it wasn't like I was, like, angry or anything or just having, like, a big thing. I was just like, I just don't want to live like this anymore. So I'm just going to kill myself tomorrow if something doesn't happen. And then I remember I woke up the next day and I would try to listen to music because I would like writing music and doing stuff like that. But the music, you just don't hear anything. It's just like it's just like listen like that when you're on those drugs. Like you don't feel the melody or anything. But then that day I was listening to music and I could it was actually like coming into me again. And I was like, oh my gosh, like God heard me. Like God answered me. And so then, and that, like, I found God really then, but then after that, it was kind of a long battle too, because I was like, all right, well, I just got to make it through these 6 months. And so, like, then, previously, I'd tried a bunch of, because this was when I was 22, and I'd tried, like almost every drug before then, and I may have done, like the main one was heroin, and before then, I did heroin maybe, 100 times before then, and that may seem like a lot of times, but, a lot of people up north, I don't know how it is down here, but up there, everyone's addicted to drugs. So not everyone, but maybe 20%, 30% of people. So my older brother, he's probably done heroin maybe 10,000 times. But I remember before then I'd maybe done it like 100 times. But then after then, I would start doing heroin every day because it was the only thing that would make you feel happy on the antipsychotics. Like nothing else. I don't know why it was or like why the drugs would happen, but like why the drugs would make you feel that way. But it was just, that's the only way you could feel any happiness at all. It was just, you just go do the heroin. So I was just doing heroin all the time. And then one time in April, it was April 20th, I overdosed on the heroin, and my grandpa found me. I was just watching TV, and so he found me overdosed, and they called the police, and they came and got me. And then, well, they didn't come and get me. They called the fire department, and they saved me and brought me to the hospital. And then after that, I still kept doing it. Like, I would still do it, like, every day. And then about June of that year, this was 2018, it stopped. Like the medicine wore off, and so I started feeling happy, but I would still do drugs and stuff then. But then for some reason too, when I was in the hospital, after I got out of the hospital in Lynn for the first time, and that from that 6 months, I got infatuated with like acting. Like I want to be an actor for some reason. So I I emailed a bunch of people, like Mark Wahlberg was one of the big actors in Boston, but I think he's a part of evil like Hollywood people now, but I don't know. But so like I found this movie he was shooting there, and so I tried for a part there. I just like gave him one of my pictures and stuff, and I didn't do anything in that movie, but I got a part in this Netflix show after called The Society. So I was just doing like background acting and stuff like that. Like you'd see me, like the people in the background, like just like walking around and stuff. Like I didn't like say anything, but you'd just see me for like 2 seconds here, or, like 3 seconds here in the episode. And so I was doing that for a while, and then that kind of brought me. Like I'd always like writing music too, and I think that's kind of what started the whole like me thinking about music and acting and stuff like that. But after that, it was still like a long time, because it was from really like 2018 to December of 2020 when I really started like trying to become a Christian and trying to live right. Because then like after the 6 months had worn off, I kind of stopped praying every night and kind of stopped doing this and got back into doing drugs all the time. And then in 2019, it's kind of just like a different year. Like, not really. It's kind of just like a gray year, kind of like I was just doing heroin a lot and smoking crack a lot and just doing like a lot of bad stuff. And then in the summer of 2019, in August, I got a big infection in my jaw, and my whole like mouth got infected, and like I couldn't even open my mouth. And so I went to the dentist, and I got really lucky because I thought I was gonna have to lose all my teeth, but they only had to pull out 2 of my teeth from that was from like smoking crack and meth and heroin all together. And so after that, I still kept doing drugs even after that. Like I still didn't stop, and then I kept going, just kind of living life. And then in 2020, in February, I was driving, and it was just like a normal day. Like I just went to work, and after work, I was kind of bored, and I was just like, well, during work, I just started, like they call it when you like have a bad craving of, it's like fiending, because you're like a fiend. And so like I started getting the feelings, and so I was like, all right, yeah, I'll just get out of work, go get high after work, like any other day. And so I went, and left work. I lived in Hudson, which is next to Nashua, which is it's a smaller city. It's not like the size of Boston, but it's just like a little city. And then there's another city, Manchester, and that's where my friend Anthony lived. So I went up to Manchester and saw my friend Anthony, and we bought some drugs. And then I started driving home, and he wasn't with me. I dropped him back off at his house. But after I dropped him off, I'm driving home, and I'm sitting in traffic. And so I was like, all right, yeah, I'm bored. So I just started getting high in traffic. And then I blacked out because I guess I overdosed when I was driving. And I woke up. I remember getting off the highway and starting to drive down, because that's where I was sitting in traffic on the highway. So I got off the highway, and I was driving through this town, Londonderry, that's in between Hudson and Manchester. And so I'm driving down through Londonderry, and then from there it was just a blur. And then I remember getting off the exit, and then I woke up in the back of an ambulance soaking wet. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? And it was because it was the middle of winter too. And it gets real cold up there. So I was like, there's no way I would have been swimming or anything or getting in the water. So I guess when I was driving home, I like lost consciousness, and then I hit someone, like I rear-ended someone, and my car flipped over, and like it flipped a bunch of times, and it ended up in a pond, like a frozen pond. That's why I was soaking wet. And I guess actually it was really crazy because some guy was just walking down the road and saw it happen, and he tried to pull me out, but he couldn't pull me out. I think my seatbelt was stuck. And so he went, there's a church service going on right next to the pond, and he went to the church, and some people from the church came, and they pulled me out. And they were covering me in the baptismal robes or blankets, whatever they were, to help keep me warm. Yeah. I don't know how they just pulled me out and like started putting those on me. And I think probably if the church wasn't there, I probably would have died. I don't know. I don't know how I didn't. From the overdose and then from the accident itself, I was fine. Like my car was like crumpled completely. Like the whole front was crumpled in, and like the roof was all crumpled in from it flipping. And I didn't have a scratch on my body except I had a little bruise from the seatbelt because I was wearing my seatbelt. Like I wasn't injured at all.
Alex showed me it was on the newspaper. His car and his accident. Alex Picard, AP, Associated Press wrote an article about it. Man gets rescued and then arrested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was on. That's why it's easy for me to share stories too, because the stuff's already been on the news like a bunch of times. So it's just like everyone already knew. So it just helps. It doesn't really help, but it's just easier to share stories. So like that happened, and then the people from the church came and brought the robes on me and the blankets, and I guess it kept me warm. And then it was really crazy too. I didn't think about this till after the accident. But one time back it was in like August 2019, I was driving around and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I had a cross there. And I think the cross I got from my dad, and I think he got it from someone who was in jail, because it looked like it was carved out of like the soap or like toothpaste they make like carvings out of. And then I think it was like a rosary beads or the cross, I don't know. It just looked kind of like a rosary, but it wasn't. And I would keep it on my mirror, and then I remember I was driving in August, and I told her, I was getting paranoid for some reason, so I told her to take it and put it like on the side thing, because the cops will pull you over if you have anything like that. Like if a cop really want to mess with you, they just pull you over for that. So I was getting paranoid, so I was like, yeah, just put it there. But then on the night, I remember before the accident, my friend Anthony, for some reason, he was like looking through my car, and he found the thing, and he was like, whoa, that's good juju, and he put it back on he put the cross back up on my mirror. And then the way home, I had the accident, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy, because I completely forgot that cross even existed. And then the night before the accident, he found the cross and put it back on the mirror. And then after that, that was February 2nd, 2020. And after that, I was still kind of going through stuff. Like I was still, even after that happened, I still kept doing drugs and stuff. And like, in June of 2020, was actually May, I got in trouble and I got sent to another psych hospital for like 2 weeks, and I went to jail for 2 weeks. And after that, I went to live with my grandma for a little, and I was court ordered. After I went to jail, they're like, all right, you just have to stay on. They're like, we don't want, because I have a pretty good like relationship with the cops and stuff around the area. Like even though I get in trouble a lot, I think they're more looking for my safety or anything. That's why I respect a lot of police and all those people. Like a lot of people who get into like drugs and stuff, they just hate cops, and they like they hate them and stuff. But like I always have a good relationship with them, so they're always like, all right, we don't want you to go to jail, we don't want you to go to the hospital, we just want you to be safe, so just go and take the meds and just do the treatment plan, because I know I didn't want to take the meds either, but they're like, just do the treatment plan and everything, you won't have any problems with us anymore, and like everything will be okay. So I was like, all right. But then they put me on these drugs. One of them was called Zyprexa, which is a different type of antipsychotic. And then that one makes you feel kind of weird too. Like I would eat a ton on it, I remember. Like I would just always be hungry. And then I was on Ativan, and then they always put me back on Clonidine too. And after I remember I'd tried this one called Latuda. Like I probably tried like 20 or 30 different type of like mental drugs. But the one Latuda, for some reason I liked. So I was like, all right, well, because the antipsychotics make you feel really, really bad. But the Latuda, that's for bipolar, because they said, like, one doctor said I had bipolar and the other one said I had schizophrenia. So I could like see if I could pretty much just tell like the psychologist like what kind of medicine I want to try, and they're just like, okay, because the psychologists don't really have any idea. It's kind of just trial and error for them. So I'll just be like, all right, just give me like this drug and that drug, and they're like, okay. So I was like, all right, I just want to go back on Latuda. So they're like, okay, as long as you're on something, it's all right. And so I'm back on Latuda makes you feel really bad too after a while. Because I'd only been on it for like a couple weeks, but I remember it made me feel good. But then this time I was on it for like 6 months, and it made me feel really bad. So I started doing like any kind of drugs again, really. But like when you're on the psych meds, that's when I really got bad into them, because you just don't feel happy at all. So that's like the only way you feel happy on them. And then after that, I was on the Latuda for about 6 months, living at my grandma's. And then I remember on Christmas of this year, me and my friend hang out, and we were doing some more drugs too on Christmas. Like, he got some MDMA and some like meth pills, and we were doing those. And then I remember from then on, that's when I stopped completely doing everything. Because those, for some reason, something like, I think God rewired my mind, because in December, like, I smoked crack and I smoked heroin again, but it didn't like do anything to me. Like, it was just kind of like, I didn't get high or anything. I don't know what happened, because like most people, when they do that stuff, they go bonkers, but like, just nothing happened. And then I hung out with my friend on December 25th, and we did the pills and the Molly, and then I remember it didn't really get me high, but I started hallucinating. Like, I started seeing like crystals, like, and like it looked like shimmering, like a lake on like leaves and stuff like that. And then I remember I just stayed awake for like 3 days, and then after that, it's like God just kind of came into me, and he was like, yeah, man, you just gotta stop doing that stuff, and you'll be okay. So I just thought, he's like, there's no point. He's like, you're just better without him. So I just stopped doing everything, and from then on, I never really did anything after that. Like, I still smoke cigarettes sometimes, but no other like hard drugs or anything like that. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it just completely stopped, and I don't know how, because it just like completely took the thought of my mind. Like, I have like just no desire anymore to do anything like that. And then after that, yeah, that was Christmas Day, 2020. And then after that, I started praying to God a lot. I had some dating apps on my phone, 'cause before I'd like try to get girls and like hang out with girls. So I'd like this app like Tinder and then like Bumble on my phone, which are like dating apps, but I like deleted those. And then, you like look up pictures of girls on the internet and stuff. I stopped doing that. And like I went for like a really long time, stopped doing that. And like God showed me like all the power, like pretty much like when you stop doing all that stuff and put it down, he like completely changed your life. And then I stopped everything for like a few months. Like, I even stopped cigarettes for like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months. And then I just stopped everything. And then for some reason, God was just like, yeah, like, well, I kind of felt it too. I was like, I like doing music, so I just started doing that. And then for some reason, I just started doing the Christian music, and I had no idea why. Even like, I was thinking about that last night. I was like, I have no idea why I even decided to start doing Christian music. It's just like kind of happened. Like, I had no idea why, or like I didn't even think of like writing like lyrics to God. It's just like the words that came out of me when I was writing. And so after that, everything's been pretty good. Like, I've been doing really good since then. Back in June, like, one of my ex-girlfriends started talking to me, and so I started giving into like temptation and lust for a little bit, but then I stopped. And then ever since then, though, it's like since December 25th. Oh, I watched a video, and then I asked my mom about it, and she was like, oh yeah, like the Sabbath, Sunday worship was actually made by the Vatican for like just to be bad, like to worship bad stuff. So I was like, yeah, like I don't want to do that, because I know a lot of crazy stories about the Pope. So I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do that stuff. No, this was like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I just learned about that like 3 weeks ago. And then, yeah, Dan showed me a thing about the Trinity too, because I never thought, that was in April when he sent me a thing about the Trinity, because I never even thought about that with the Trinity. I was just like, oh yeah, you got Jesus, God, and the Holy Ghost. But I didn't really start reading the Bible heavily until like June of this year too. I never really started studying the Bible. But I never even thought of that. I was just like, yeah, it's just how it is, because the churches always talk about that. You got God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost. And you think the Holy Ghost is like actually like a ghost, like it's like it would be like the ghost of me, like just coming and like blessing people, but it was just the Spirit of God Himself. And so that made me kind of think too, like, wow, you don't know a lot of stuff that goes on. There's a lot of like deception. Oh yeah. Oh, we met on Instagram because we were doing music stuff. And so I think he just messaged me one day about some stuff, and we just started talking. He sent me a Bible study. He sent me the Bible study on the Trinity, and then after that, we just kind of just been in contact, and we did some songs, and like, yeah, we just been talking a while. He's introduced me to a lot of people he knows too that's doing Christian music. Just like I met a lot more people through him, and like I met all you guys through him too. And then I was looking on Facebook because we were Facebook friends, and someone was like, hey, like, I wish there was like a retreat or something I could bring my family to and just like get away and just like get close to God. And I was kind of thinking like, you know what, that'd be good too. Cause like for me, cause I was working a lot and I just want to get like more connected with God too. So I was like, yeah, like I like to do that too. So I just asked Dan about it, and it just kind of happened. Yeah, like I'm real happy I came, because at first I was thinking about it too. I was like, whoa, like I don't know if I could do that for like a whole week, just studying the Bible and stuff. But now, like I got here, I'm really happy I came, because it's just like a whole new experience, kind of. Yeah. But thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. Yeah. All right, I'll say, this prayer I say every night before I go to bed. So I'll just say that prayer. I say, Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything you blessed me with today. And thank you for giving me another day in the gift of life. Please forgive me from my sin as I repent in the name of Jesus Christ and accept Him in my heart and soul as my Lord and Savior. Please help keep my family safe, strong, healthy, out of trouble and happy. And please help this world, God. And please help my music and help me to spread my message to your message to the people, and help the message of Talking Rock get out to all the people so they can know the one true God. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. I don't say the last part like about Talking Rock. I added that. But I just say help me get your message out to people and my message and stuff like that. But I added the last part.